Hello everyone and welcome to the Music of the Month Roundup episode 10. As always, we look at the albums I listened to in the previous month, this being February of 2020, and, leap year February, so good stuff there. And it means I had an extra day to catch up on stuff I might have missed. So, yeah, we're just gonna, go through them, obviously, band name order, the grades I gave them, and what month they all came out, which is sort of irrelevant because these all came out in February, and I listened to them all in February, so that's all you need, really. They all came out in February. But, we're just gonna kick things right off with The Amity Affliction, Everyone Loves You Once You Leave Them. I've heard of The Amity Affliction. I never went out of my way to fully listen to an album of theirs. I thought this one was... it was alright. I feel like I should have started a bit sooner. I heard their last album wasn't great, Misery, but I didn't listen to it, so this was my first one by them. It gets a B- from me. There is some good lyrics to it, but, a lot of it just feels bogged down by the production of it all, and the band doesn't really get to show off as much as I think they should have been able to. There's good emotion, and as I mentioned, good lyrics, but, yeah, they just, I feel like with a bit more time and a bit more, rawness, it would have been a bit higher. Next is Beneath the Massacre with Fearmonger. Beneath the Massacre have been around for a while. This is their first full album in 8 years, I believe. My first album by them as well. Spoiler, you're going to hear that a lot from me. And I thought it was pretty decent, actually. It gets a C+ from me because it falls into a lot of the tropes that technical death metal core style falls into. Way too many short songs, for example. I found myself liking the long songs that pushed past the 3-minute and 3.5-minute marks that actually felt like they built to something. But the band, even though they got through it fast, they played like hell to get through it fast, so, they did a great job. And it's not produced terribly either, but just way too short to really, chew on. I like something I can discuss. Well, when I talk to people, which isn't really ever. But still, I thought this was, next is Envy with the Fallen Crimson. My first Envy album. They're a band from Japan. They've always been known to do this weird hardcore punk. I think it's hardcore punk. The sort of metal style that's quite unique to them. Even for a Japanese band, it's quite unique. And it gets a B from me. I actually found myself enjoying this one a lot. It's got one of my favorite cover arts of the year so far as well. I think it looks really cool. Yeah, I look forward to listening to more from these guys. Maybe I'll go back over their old stuff. I thought this was a pretty solid, start for me to get into the band, so, yeah, it's got, that really cool style that I quite enjoyed. Next is Five Finger Death Punch with Fate, or F8, or however you want to pronounce it, and it gets a D. It gets a D. I just can't bring myself to muster up any passion to even discuss how much I think Five Finger Death Punch are just boring now. Even though I did just say that. Because it is true, they've just sort of given up on doing anything. They said that they tried to change things up a bit more this time around, and I'm not really sure if I believe that in the slightest. It just doesn't feel like they've changed at all. It feels like a tiny improvement, but that it's like saying that in a big pile of shit, this album is the smallest pile of shit compared to Justice for None and Got Your Six, which were both also really bad. So, but at least that's a tiny bit improved. It's just the same old bollocks this time around, and yeah, I just think Five Finger Death Punch needs something massive to change their careers around now. Just But we're just going to move on to the next album, which I enjoyed a lot more. 4 Years Strong with Brain Pain. 4 Years Strong, this is their first album in 5 years, so they don't really live up to their name. The first album since their self-titled album, which came in 2015. And I think it's my 4th album in a row by them. And yeah, I really like this one. It gets an A+ from me. Really inventive songwriting. A bit more experimental even for 4 Years Strong, who are known for pushing outside the boundaries of the typical easycore mold. Fantastic beards, as always, as you would expect from a band dubbed beardcore. Yeah, this had everything I liked. Really great lyrics. Doesn't really dip for me, and yeah, I just thought it was proper good. I thought this was a really, really good moving forward for the band, and definitely the right kind of change that they needed to make. because, you know, I thought their last album was really great as well, but they made the necessary changes to not just repeat what they did last time, which I can appreciate. Next is Green Day with Father of All Motherfuckers. I think this is the main album that people would have wanted me to talk about the most. This and another one we'll get to a bit later. And it gets a B-. I thought it was decently catchy, but it was way too short. Like, there's only 10 songs, and I don't know how many of them break past the 3-minute mark. I don't think, like, many of them do. There's just not really a lot to go on, and Green Day have said that they're going to release another album soon. I hope it's a lot better than this one. I don't know what it was, but, like, they've had a weird career lately, because Revolution Radio was pretty good. Their Trios album was confusing as hell. 21st Century Breakdown and American Idiot were both great. I haven't listened to either of those two, but I just know they're good. What am I talking about? I don't know. But I listened to this one, Father of All Motherfuckers, and despite having one of my favourite titles of the year, because it's just funny, not one of my favourite albums. But, you know, B- is far from the worst. Next is Hollywood Undead with New Empire Volume 1. Much like Green Day, Hollywood Undead are also going to release a new album hopefully this year after this. And I thought it was really a massive step up from the last couple of albums, honestly, because I feel like this is the change that Five Finger Death Punch wanted to make but didn't. And Hollywood Undead took a lot more time. They made their own record label. They sort of took everything under their own wing, and it's really good to hear them have their own creative control. It's a much more serious album, and I'm really glad that they're taking this route now. It's not a completely new thing for them, but it is the step in the right direction that they needed, and that's why it gets a B+. I thought this was pretty good. The only thing is, it feels a bit too much like stereotypical Hollywood Undead fare, but it is a lot heavier, it's a bit darker, it does talk about more serious stuff, and hopefully I'm looking forward to Volume 2, and I hope it really improves on Volume 1, personally. Next is Loathe with I Let It In and It Took Everything. Loathe are a band I heard of because of, like when I talked about Dragged On there last month. Jared Dines put a show together, Loathe were on that show, and I think this is their second album, first or second. I know I'm quite early on with it, which is good for me because I like catching this shit early, and this is really, really good. This gets an A. I thought this was really good, like, slow building emotive, like, hardcore, sort of metalcore stuff. Really great lyrics, really great musicianship and instruments and stuff. I really, really enjoyed this one. I thought it was really good. What more can I say? Just find this one and listen to it. Give it a go for yourself. You might love it instead of loathing it. You know, going against the band's name. See what I did? Anyway. Next is the other album I think most people wanted me to talk about. Ozzy Osbourne with Ordinary Man. His first album since 2010's Black Rain, I think it was called. Black Rain or Blood Rain. And my first full Ozzy album, but, you know, I know who Ozzy is. Everyone knows who Ozzy is. This one gets a B+. I thought this was really solid for a dude who's 70 now. To still be knocking out this style and doing it better than anyone else could ever hope. It's I think it's a surprisingly open and honest album for him as well. The song and video for Under the Graveyard are my favourite examples. I think Under the Graveyard is my favourite song on this album, and if they were ever going to do a biopic of Ozzy, the dude who played Ozzy in that video, because it wasn't Ozzy himself, it was an actor, he did a great job, and yeah, find the video for this. It's a really good video, and it's a really good album, B+. It's still a good example of the old god doing fantastic work. Speaking of fantastic work, next is Polaris with The Death of Me. I sort of accidentally stumbled across this one last week, and I thought, I'll add it to my list. You know, it might be just another passable listen, and it was actually quite enjoyable. Much the same way it has everything I enjoyed about Loathe's album, really emotive hardcore. A bit shorter than Loathe's album, but still says more than enough of what it needs to. I really enjoyed this one. It gets an A+. I know I hand those out quite a lot, but I like the sort of concept behind The Death of Me. I think it's their second or third album. Once again, it's a band I'm early on, so really glad about that. Next is Saviour with A Luna Rose. These are a band I'm not as familiar with, but this is their first album since 2017, I think. They don't release a lot. What's stranger is that I think it has the effect of another band we're going to get to in a bit. Like, these bands have been around for a while, and I think this is their fourth full-length album, too. But it's the first one I'm hearing of, and it's, you know, it's that really good, like, experimental hardcore punk style that I've come to grow and love over the years. It does get a B+ because it feels a bit too quiet on the production front, but it does great work with what the band does, because they have, like, a male screaming singer and a female clean singer. And those two bounce off of each other really well. Like, the chemistry between those two on this album was really good. I think it was my favourite part about it. Great lyrics as well, obviously, really good. Well, good production in places when you could hear the band. But yeah, I thought it was alright. Well, alright. B+. Yeah, more than alright. We've only got 5 more to go, so stay with me. Next is Sepultura with Quadra. It's a concept album about the number 4, I think, or something around that, like how it has to do with like death and life. And Sepultura are a band I've heard of, never listened to fully, so this is again a first for me. And A+, no doubt A+. Really, really good, like straightforward, technical, well, not really technical death metal, just death groove metal stuff. Really, really enjoyable. Surprisingly, like a lot of it stuck in my head. The band sound great, and they're a band that have been around for a long time too. And so yeah, once again, great example of the old guard. Might be my favourites of the year, I'm not really sure. All I know is I really like this one, and you should find and listen to it. Next, Spanish Love Songs with Brave Faces Everyone. A+, A++, fuck it. You know, I don't really do pluses, but I really love this album. Oh my god, I think this might be a front runner for top album of the year so far. Just emotive, like emo pop punk style, surprisingly relatable, produced well, the band sound great, it's structured beautifully. It's sort of like a Wonder Years album in their heyday, you know? And it's just, and the lead singer can really sing too. Oh, he's so good. Listen to Brave Faces Everyone by Spanish Love Songs now. Like, do it now. Next, an album I didn't feel as warmly towards, Stone Temple Pilots with Perdida. Once again, another band I've heard of for quite a while. Oh, I should mention the Spanish Love Songs, Brave Faces Everyone. It's their third album, but the first one I've heard of them. And the first time that most people have heard about them. So, yeah, I'm glad a lot of people are jumping onto the train at the same time, including me. So, yeah, Stone Temple Pilots with Perdida. They took more of a sort of folksy route to this one. I haven't really gone out of my way to listen to Stone Temple Pilots, even when Scott Weiland and Chester Bennington were fronting. May they both rest in peace. And this one gets a C-. I wasn't really feeling this one. It just sort of felt dull and a bit uninspired. Like, it has good intentions behind it, but it was sort of like one more light for me. Like, this wasn't the route I wanted this band to take at all. Especially, like, I know a bit about their old style, and this is not that at all. If you're a diehard Stone Temple Pilots fan, you're not going to find any of that signature stuff here. It's going to be a bit slow, and nothing is really going to get achieved, which is why it gets a C-. But there is an honesty to it, which I do sort of appreciate in a weird way. Next is Sylosis with Cycle of Suffering. This is their first album in 5 years. They broke up around about 2016, reformed a year or two later. So, yeah. Weird how that works. They're a British metalcore, sort of like thrashy, genty sort of band. And I thought this was pretty good for my first Sylosis album. It gets a B+. I thought it was a really, really enjoyable, really enjoyable bit of, like, British heavy metal. You know, modernised British heavy metal. Like, they did a really good job by it. They did it a really good, service. So, yeah, not a lot of complaints about this one. I feel like not enough of it stuck with me, but it was still good, you know, for like the first album since the band broke up, even though it wasn't really for a long time. Yeah, it was pretty good stuff. And finally, we're going to end on a surprisingly divisive album from what I've seen on professional reviews. The Word Alive with Monomania. Personally, it gets an A from me. I thought this was really good, like really emotive, really well produced. The band sounded great. And, yeah, like, I found some reviews that called this really good and some that weren't on the side. And I thought, you know, I just looked at the bad reviews and thought, what's wrong with you? this album's really good. Like, it's the kind of thing the Word Live needed to do. I feel like it's the thing they tried to attempt with Violent Noise. This is my third Word Live album in a row, by the way. Following Dark Matter in 2016 and Violent Noise in 2018. So, yeah, I thought this was really solid. That's why it gets an A. The band sound great. It's produced really well. It's structured quite well. A lot of people say it's not as heavy as the previous stuff, but I'm like, you know that the Word Live's focus has never been the proper super heavy stuff. They've always been a bit more experimental, right? Yeah, this is nothing new for them at all, and I don't really get why people have so many gripes with it. I don't. I thought this was a really, really solid and entertaining album, which is why I get an A. Also, really good lyrics too. So, yeah, that's the last album after review. I'll see you for March, where up until like yesterday, I just spent most of yesterday scaring around for new albums because I didn't have a lot at first, but now I've got a lot more. I will see you most likely tonight for a PBW stream, and next thing after that should be the Hailstorm, like very brief history, then the actual backtracking episode, then Fight of the Night review, if there is one this weekend. And that's about it. That's all I have really left. That's all I really have left planned for the near future. And I'll see you for another episode of this, hopefully at the start of April at some point. As always, thank you for watching. You're awesome. Bye bye.